The Amazing Digital Circus is a great show. From the beginning, I've had no real complaints. Personally, I haven't been obsessed with the show like I have with many other projects, and I've seen many others with this show. But what I lack in obsession, I make up for tenfold in my respect. The Amazing Digital Circus is one of the smartest cartoons I've ever seen. The concept feels so thought out, both from a storytelling but then also a production standpoint. And after seeing this most recent episode, I felt it was finally time to break down the brilliance of Gooseworks' creation of this show. So far, I have nothing but praise about the show. It isn't my favorite cartoon of all time, but my admiration from what it does runs deep. All the characters are great. While with the pilot not everyone was memorable, the show has done a great job about making me care for everyone. Ragatha had episode 2 to get a bit more established. Caine was my favorite after episode 3, and now I would probably say that same thing about Gangle following this most recent episode. Episode after episode were treated to a solid episode of TV. Well, like I said, I'm still not at the point of being obsessed with the show. Each time I sit down to watch a new episode, I just know I'm in for a good time, and I can consistently expect something good. The episode concepts, the animation, the tiny way we weave lore drops or character backstories into what would otherwise be just a cookie-cutter genre episode is handled really well. They take these genres or experiences that we know and are familiar with, both through TV and life, and make them into something worth caring about, which is just so cool. And this most recent episode is the best example yet. It's an episode about people working at a fast food job, but in the context of the show, it becomes so much more. We have the best character moments to date, really learning a lot about all of the key players. We get a lot of lore hints setting up future episodes, and it was a great time in a fun setting which gave us a lot of interesting content to play with. Just the addition of new costumes in this episode made it so fun. I love when I can tell apart episodes just by looking at a single frame, and that's one of the biggest benefits of animation. You can do different styles, different designs, without costing too much money, and the show is just perfectly adapted towards the medium in a way which is really rare to find. Caine is by far the character with the most to explain, so let's start with him. He serves so many functions, both as a comic relief, but also as this possible antagonistic force being set up, a helper, and with his place as ringmaster of the circus, the creator of all the missions, putting him in a role of unchecked and unimaginable power, which gives so much room to play around with. As we've seen throughout, he is creating the different adventures from concept and actually designing them. In episode 3, we learn that he's making them and takes pride in them, although he never does a good job. Hold on to that, because he cuts so many corners and has so many game-breaking bugs inside of each adventure. Even from a storytelling perspective, the missions are intentionally unsatisfying. It's like if a teenager tried to create a video game based entirely off vibes in previous stories, which is why they all feel a bit odd, like episode 3. They defeat the monster? No, you're just gonna randomly go to hell. It's not satisfying, but it's not a knock against the show when I say that. It's brilliant because it challenges these characters to a point where they break down instead of having a positive change. In a video game, for example, you learn, you just keep moving on, maybe you grow. Here, every time they face an obstacle that's just painfully bad, they break down, they fail, and they get emotional, and it's really interesting. And it just happens to all the characters besides Pomni, and there's a theory in there. But the point is that it's a genius tactic to subtly torture the characters for us using what would be bad writing if we take it at face value. And even his assets are intentionally janky. Models get reused, and the majority are literally just characters colored to match the theme of the setting, which is also just really funny. But this works out to build familiarity with the show on a writing level where it, again, works like a video game where you can learn to identify threats and memorize patterns, which just makes for a fun viewing experience. Plus, again, you can build theories like how characters, Gummy Goo for example, they actually keep their memory, which is a theory going on right now, and it's an interesting way to develop reoccurring characters in a world where it wouldn't work otherwise. And if the characters, the main cast, keep complaining about missions, Caine will undoubtedly break down as we see him approaching in almost every episode, which makes him even more three-dimensional. He tries to be so good at what he does, and he isn't, and that insecurity sets up parallels with the main cast, as well as also possibly being a threat to them. While Caine is an AI, by having him fail at his main purpose, it gives the chance to compare him with the humans that he is trapped with, and that's a really smart idea. It gives his character depth which couldn't be present otherwise. Before we get episode 5, I definitely want to go do deeper dives into the characters and their flaws, and I definitely think it's worth it to go over it now. Go over their problems and how they relate to the episodes we do have out. Ragatha isn't genuine, and when she breaks, which she will, it's most likely we'll see it in the next episode, and someone will get hurt. Kinger's already broken, most likely from an inability to deal with the past. Zooble can't find her purpose. Gangle can't control her feelings. Jax, I'd say from what we saw in the most recent episode, is that he needs attention and knocks down others to achieve it. Finally, Pomni is tough to nail down. She doesn't want to be here. I mean, no one does. But also, as we saw in this most recent episode, when she talked to Gangle in episode 4, she's kind of tired of fixing everyone else's problems, but I don't think that can be the issue. Apathy, maybe, but what I worry more is that Pomni will end up giving too much of her own happiness to others. She may not like doing it, but she still does. Like she said in episode 2, she can't have others unhappy around her, feeling like they're nothing. So far, there's not really anyone actively helping her out. Ragatha tries, but if she turns evil or abstracts, then who's left? Just because others depend on her wouldn't mean that she can depend on them, and that's the problem. We have a 9-episode run of the show, where 5 is a Ragatha episode, 6 is a Jax episode, where he will be punished for what he does, and that means we have a big turning point around the corner which will shake things up in the show. The fact that we have such a grasp on these characters after only 4 episodes is incredible writing. We know who they are and their flaws, and we can predict future events. It's a stacked cast with amazingly written characters and a big variety of them, so the fact that we know so much this soon is crazy. This 4th episode really just proved the writing on Digital Circus is unmatched for indie animation, and honestly even just sitcoms in general. Think about how much we learned from episode 4. We got confirmation that characters get reused and that Caine can torture players if he wants. We finally got a deeper look at Ragatha and Jax, with her getting drunk, with Jax getting tortured and being forced into his old normal life, setting them up for their own massive episodes. Gangle got a level of development that makes her the most compelling cast member, and the episode doesn't feel like it's set up. It's its own solid thing with everything else just tied into it perfectly. It just fascinates me how well they thought out the show, both story-wise but from production aspect as well. Simple character designs as a result of both low graphic capabilities of this 90s-esque computer, as well as designs which reflect personalities. I think it's really funny how many characters don't have a full face rig, whether it's eyes or mouths or what be it. Many character models can be recycled, and most new assets and worlds are stylistically simple to create. It means that we can get these expansive worlds each episode that look stunning without having an arcane-sized budget. Digital Circus is amazing, and I plan on covering these characters a whole lot more. There's just so much depth in each episode, and if it keeps following this trajectory, it's only going to get crazier and crazier, and I'm all here for it. This week, I'd like to get a video out covering Epic the Musical, maybe around Friday, Saturday, so stay tuned for that. Next week, besides covering the Ithaca saga and most likely Sans Miss from Hell of Boss, because I'm guessing it'll come out on Christmas, though we don't know, I'll have those, and I'd like to finally announce a new project which I've been slowly working on these past few weeks. It's been a good one.